When Hollywood gave us The Woman King, the world cheered. I mean, I personally, I loved the movie. I was so excited to see it because we saw fierce women in high definition battles, and for one moment, it felt like a win. But Hollywood has a habit of cleaning up history to make it fit a hero's journey. That brings me to talk about the real story of the Dahomey Amazons, the Mino. Now, their story is much darker, much more complex, and far more fascinating than any movie could ever fully depict. They weren't just female warriors, okay? They were the king's third gender. And let me explain that. So it was kind of like a psychological experiment in total devotion to the owners of the very land they defended. So in this video, we're looking past, the cinema stories and all the glitz and the glam of the movie to actually talking about the real story of the Mino, the Dahomey Amazons. So here's the first thing that Hollywood didn't tell you. Remember when I spoke about the third gender? Did I know when legally men? Yeah, they were. So in the kingdom of Dahomey, once a woman joined the army, she underwent a total social transformation. They were called Ahosi, meaning the king's wives, but they were forbidden from having children or having a traditional wedding or traditional marriage. By law, they were transformed into a unique class. Kind of, they were elevated, kind of. They could own property, they could command men, they could sit in the king's council. So in a world that was, like very strictly divided, the minor were like the glitch in the matrix. They proved that gender in Africa was often a status, not just, a biological situation or a biological position. They weren't fighting to be like men. They were fighting as a category on their own. The funny thing is, everybody talks about their muskets, but nobody talks about the elephant hunt. I'm really enjoying the story time. Okay, so before the Mino were a standing army, they were a guild of hunters. They were the only ones brave enough to hunt the African forest elephant with nothing but iron harpoons. This is the missing link of their history. So they developed a very high pain tolerance. In fact, it was legendary, and stealth by tracking 6-ton beasts for weeks. They also had a terrifying weapon that Hollywood didn't capture, and that was the giant razors. These were like 3 foot long folding blades that could decapitate a man in just one swing. They didn't just fight, they were very much specialized when it came to psychological terror. In fact, you could call them like the boogeyman of the West African coast. The truth is, while we talk about how legendary they were and how strong and powerful they were as warriors and as fighters in Dahomey, we also have to talk about the uncomfortable truth about them. Dahomey was a slave state, and the Mino were the primary force that was used to capture other Africans for the transatlantic slave trade. And so this is where the whole girl power narrative, gets complicated. They were victims of a global system, but they were also enforcers of that system. However, let's look deeper. So by the mid 1800s, the minor actually became, the loudest voice when it came to talking against slave trade in the king's courts. Why? Why did they suddenly switch places? This is because they realized that selling off their people was in fact doing more harm and more damage to the kingdom and the kingdom's defense against the French, who were their colonizers. We'll call them the first geopoliticians of Dahomey. They saw the end. In fact, they saw how all of what was happening at the time would turn out even before the king, realized the situation. So the Mino weren't just woman kings. They were the mothers and the fighters. They remind us that African womanhood has always and will always be too big for the Western box. They were complicated, they were fierce, and they were very brilliant strategists. And so this is just a reminder to make sure to read up on the history of African women and the great things that they did in pre colonial Africa. If you enjoyed this story about the Dahomey warriors, the woman kings, and you want to hear more stories like this and I get more information about African women and the core essence of African women being feminists long before now. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to engage, leave your comments. Let's talk in the comments. What do you think about these women? And what are some other historical stories about African women that were not fully captured in the movies that we see today or even fully captured in history generally? Make sure to let me know in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.